All right, we're live.
We're live!
Episode 11. We're going to focus on the book Babel. It's, the title.
Babel Slaps
Yeah.
by R.F. Kuang.
R.F. Kuang. Let's put a pin in that for a second because both of us saw Frankenstein.
Yep.
And we both have thoughts.
Yeah, man. I went to the movies. I paid like $12 to see that with my discount at the local theater.
See, I watched it on Netflix.
And I think you probably got your money's worth in that respect. I don't know if I did.
Yeah.
It looked very pretty on the big screen.
It was a pretty thing.
Except for the parts where there was like actiony, like fighty, actiony Marvel stuff happening, you know, when Frankenstein's creation is fighting packs of wolves for some reason, or besieging a, exploratory vessel. Arctic exploratory vessel, I should say.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, we were talking about this at length before we got on, and
talking is a generous word. We were ranting.
It utterly misses the mark.
Okay, so my takeaway from this movie is that Guillermo del Toro is very good at constructing pretty scapes, visual scapes. I don't think he's a good reader or writer. I don't think he understood the text.
Yeah, there's some really fundamental pieces of Mary Shelley's work he's missing. And, here's the thing. There are a lot of interpretations of a Frankenstein out there.
So many good
knows
ones.
how many.
So many good ones.
But, I think we've both kind of settled that Young Frankenstein, the Mel Brooks film, is, one of the best.
Okay, I'm a huge fan of James Whale's Frankenstein. The Frankenstein movie that everybody's really familiar with, it's based on the plays that were written when she was in Italy, and in which they kind of recast every aspect of the story, but keep the core of what she's saying, which is that playing God, even if you have the noblest of intentions, is folly. And I think you're right. I think Mel Brooks's Young Frankenstein is actually my favorite version of it because it's extremely faithful to the source material of the book and James Whale's movie, and it also is the only movie that figures out what needs to happen to stop tragedy from happening.
Right.
Wherein Friedrich Frankenstein, I'm so sorry, accepts his son for who he is and then tries to make him part of his family.
Right. And I think, it's just, you can do whatever you want with an interpretation, but you've got to keep the spirit of the story.
If you want it to be a good adaptation.
If you want it to be a good adaptation,
Absolutely.
He just doesn't.
No.
He just doesn't. He's missing huge chunks of things. Some of his, creative choices in terms of, spending at least a third of the movie on the creation of the creature.
Yeah, and all of turning Victor Frankenstein from a monomaniacal scientist to a Lothario just because you cast Oscar Isaac, I guess.
Yeah,
and he's sexy. He's obviously sexy, but
and everything's
that
out
wasn't
in the
necessary.
Open. And then why is this? We were talking about this too, and I don't want to get too deep into this just because we want to get to the book.
Yeah.
But there's so many story choices of things he does that he does nothing with that add nothing to the narrative. Why is his father a dick? Why does he have basically super healing powers, a healing factor?
Oh, why is Victor Frankenstein's father a dick? And why does the creature have a healing factor like Wolverine? Yeah, good questions.
Yeah, it if you're gonna do something with it, do something with it.
Absolutely.
But don't just give us these things and then do nothing with them plot wise. And there was so many elements of that. And then the whole idea of where, he never actually starts to try to create his female counterpart, the bride of Frankenstein, never does anything with that. it's
Ooh.
like you're missing a huge opportunity to have this conversation of like, oh, you might start to take responsibility and then back out again a second time.
Absolutely, like doubling down on your failure as a father and a creator and a person.
Right.
Absolutely.
So there's a lot of things in here, and then like the whole forgiveness arc at the end, just like,
Yep.
and then the quote at the end, you can.
Oh God, he fucking quotes Lord Byron at the end of a movie based on a book by Mary Shelley, which is just fucking insulting because Mary Shelley fucking hated that dude. And I don't care if you think it's applicable. He's not the only one who's talking about destiny in the Romantic era. All right,
Like she could have cited
she
her own
could've-
husband.
he could have quoted her own husband.
Like, yeah,
That's just the fucking fences,
like
man.
Percy Shelley like wrote a lot of poetry.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Oh, one of the things I love about this book, by the way, is that Robin thinks that Mary Shelley is the superior Shelley, and I've always felt that deep in my soul.
Yeah, I mean, you're hearing that from the writer. So
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
let's move on to Babel.
I'm just gonna come down and say outright, Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein, bad movie. Don't recommend it.
Do not recommend.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys.
But Babel, I really recommend. I think it's the second best book we've read after Mary Shelley's Frankenstein.
This is one of those books that I think is going to stand the test of time and is going to be considered a classic, like 1984.
I can see that.
Or Brave New World.
Yeah.
Or a variety of other these kind of texts. It pulls no punches, and it is just a brilliantly and heartbreaking kind of story. I mean, it is like that ending tore me up.
That ending is good.
It's so good. But it's like you care so much about the characters
Victoire.
by the end. I know.
My girl,
Victoire
man.
and Remy and and Robin.
Fucking Letty though.
Oh, Letty though. But we'll get to Letty.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
But let's talk a little bit about the author's bio. She's just, I mean, an incredible.
I don't know anything about her except she's 29 and prolific as shit.
She's prolific. She started writing the Poppy War trilogy when she was 19. And that's also an award-winning series. So, like,
Talking about Mary Shelley, man.
Yeah,
Damn.
this is like a woman who's like channeling Mary Shelley energy for sure.
For
like
real.
changing the game on the kinds of conversations, like having a very intense and raw conversation about colonialism in a way that is also so accessible.
Absolutely, and entertaining.
And then, I mean, don't even get me started about the linguistics.
Yo.
She knows her shit.
Dude, okay, so I just want to interject one thing here. I got a note here. It says, at one point in the book, the main character's talking to one of his teachers, and his teacher says this: translation is fundamentally betrayal because it reveals or exposes insider knowledge to a wider scrutiny. And I have a note here that says, ask Michael if this applies to anthropology.
Yeah.
Is anthropology also betrayal?
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you look at the early anthropology, especially, yeah.
Oh.
Early anthropology was a colonial tool of power.
Absolutely.
How can we win the, quote, hearts and minds, if you're looking at, like, the Iraq and Afghanistan war, how can we win the hearts and minds of the local population so we can more successfully exploit and assimilate them?
Ooh, fuck.
That is what early anthropology was.
Sure.
It is not that any longer.
But it's the fundamental act of, like, explaining the emic aspects of a culture to a wider audience. Is that a betrayal of your informants?
Emic is insider approach or insider approach to research and knowledge. Etic is outsider approach. So yeah, there's I mean, it's definitely complicated. I think it depends on how you use translation.
Okay.
Are you using translation or interpretation when you're talking about speech? It's translation with written text. It's interpretation when it's spoken. It's spoken, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, like when he goes in, there's a point in the book when he translates for like the British overlords of like the Opium War.
Yeah, is it the literally? No, it's not the India. The British.
It's not the East India Tea Company.
India. Yeah,
but it's like basically the next worst thing.
Yeah.
That would be interpretation. But when they're studying all these texts throughout the book, that's translation. So, but depending on how you're using those things, are they extracting resources from the community? In this case, literally, they're extracting the knowledge required to power magic through translation, which we'll get to the magic system in a minute here. But yeah, absolutely, it actually can be exploitative. There's no doubt about it. It depends on what the framework is you're using. Are these people like being exploited economically or various ways, not just economically, or is it a situation where they're trying to advocate for this group of people and trying to make sure that, or like in a treaty situation where everyone's trying to come to the table and hash out an agreement that benefits everyone for the best possible thing? That would not be a betrayal.
Okay.
But like I definitely think that like the context here in this book, a lot of this translation is betrayal, which like all the major characters save one are mixed race. So they're basically the typical British colonial model where they went out to another area and they picked the people that they thought would be well assimilated and add to the strength of their empire, right? In a lot of cases, and this is true of what happened with many colonial empires, you take them when they're children. And you take them when they have enough knowledge left of their own culture and language that you can use that as a doorway for exploitation, as an opening for exploitation. So
okay, you heard it here first, guys. Michael says that anthropology is sometimes a betrayal.
It is, yeah. I mean, any anthropologist worth their salt would tell you that.
It depends,
including your wife. She would say the same thing. I mean, my first lecture on what is anthropology is titled "The Dark History of Anthropology."
Oh man,
because we begin. Well, first we talk about like proto-anthropology, in China and the Middle East before it became like what we think of anthropology today. Because there's a lot of people who were contributing to that field before Europeans really got a hold of it.
Yeah.
Because look, as a person of European descent, I just want to say real quick, Europe doesn't really invent anything. There's almost nothing that Europe is uniquely inventing. Most of what Europe has is stolen from other cultures, and that's what causes its rise. It's really good at appropriating other people's information and knowledge and ideas. But like if you look at the history of how the rise of Europe happens, it's mostly because the Mongol Empire collapses and the Mongols brought all the technologies, ideas, and tools and dropped them on Europe's doorstep right as they get all the way to Poland, and then the Black Death shatters the Mongol Empire. And so Europe really, like when we talk about innovation and all these ideas, and you talk about it here in the United States, when do you see innovation? It's when diverse ideas are coming from many different cultures. It's not monocultural, this stuff. You need a mix of these ideas.
Bagpipes. That's the only thing that Europe has invented.
I don't know anything about the history or origin of
bagpipes.
But most of the instruments of Europe come from Asia and the Middle East.
Absolutely.
So, lutes is what becomes guitar. And yeah, they tweak it, they change it.
Yeah.
But gunpowder, optics, hospitals, quarantine procedure. I mean, the list goes on and on. The concept of zero. Like, if there's anything you should take away about colonialism, it's the fact that Europe did not invent the concept of zero. The concept of zero was invented in India and the Middle East and by the Mayans and I think the Incans as well.
I think so, yeah.
Long before the Europeans got to this idea. I mean, Roman numerals you can't do shit with. You can't do shit with Roman
numerals. Come on, try to use Roman numerals to count anything.
But back to the author.
Oh, yeah. She's good.
She's a Marshall Scholar. She's very prolific. She's got multiple master's degrees. I believe is currently finishing up a PhD at Yale.
I think, yeah.
This is one of those super genius. This is the kind of author that I read and I think to myself, Jesus, I wish I was that good.
Oh man, Amor Tolls does that to me too.
Yeah.
I read his work and I'm just like, this motherfucker.
Like,
plus he was like a bank guy in New York before he started writing really humanistic novels.
Right.
Short stories. It's just like, God damn it.
So very brilliant individual, very prolific already. Is only not even 30 yet.
Yeah.
And I just can't wait to see what this author does after reading this book. I'm probably going to go and read all of her books over the next year at some point.
I mean, the Poppy War is very relevant.
Yeah, the Poppy very relevant here too. But yeah, so let's talk a little bit about the magic system. So the magic system
It's pretty cool.
it's pretty cool. It takes a little time to really grasp what's going on, and she does a really excellent job of kind of softballing it into you.
Mm-hmm.
But what you have is silver bars. So these bars are like they're made like these little strips of silver,
Mm-hmm.
and there's silver bars. And how the magic system works is that you inscribe on one side of the silver bar a word in one language, and then you inscribe the rough approximation of the word in the other language.
No, I thought it was a translation.
The translate right,
Mm-hmm.
but it's the translation of the word, right?
Mhm.
The rough approximation with the translation.
Mm-hmm.
I should have actually probably grabbed a specific example. There's so many important ones.
Well, so there's one it's like movement, and these are in carriages that you see. So like the story takes place in like actually the days just before Queen Victoria's ascension to queenliness. And
right
so
at the
like,
beginning of the Poppy
but
War.
yeah,
Or,
exactly.
sorry,
The Opium Wars.
Opium War.
But but you're confronted with a London, like in England, that has like better technology than you would expect, and it's all based upon the fact that like this magic system can make things smoother. It can smooth out like rough edges of technology.
And,
So you've got carriages moving around like cars, but they're drawn by horses, or sometimes they're not.
they're self-driving in some
They're
cases.
self-driving, and actually I think in most cases in London.
Mhm.
And the reason for that is that they all have like two silver bars, like one on each side of the carriage. And on one side of the a silver bar, it'll be like speed, and then on the other side it'll be like the word for speed in another language, and on another silver bar it'll be stability, and and then a translation of that like in Chinese or whatever.
Right.
Probably not Chinese though, actually like Belgian. And the thing that's powering the magic that provides the speed and the stability is the failure, or the
contradictions.
the contradictions and the unexpressed like meaning of the original word that is not represented in the translated word.
Right.
And so this magic system is great because it's just about like you can just use silver bars and translation of words from different languages. But as people become more familiar with a language in a country, the magic is less potent. So like if more people in England start learning Belgian or become more familiar with Belgian words, to the point like we have with French, where like there are like 50 French words you use every day that you don't realize it because they've just become commonplace English words, and we understand what they mean, like croissant or whatever.
As we adopt new words into English from another culture,
yes,
the magic loses its effectiveness.
Exactly.
So
it's a cool fucking concept.
It's a really cool concept because it's actually really important to the plot too as well.
And it tells you all a lot about how colonialism works on an intuitive level without having to explain it really like didactically.
Right. If you want a good example of like how words like work into assimilating it from one language to another, take a look, and I always use this list when I'm teaching linguistics in classes. It's the 2014 new words into the Webster's Dictionary, and you'll see like chile con queso is, as of 2014, an English word.
There you go.
Right? Or carne asada is another one.
Carne asada,
right? But then you also see stuff like going on with like video games and the tech industry and social media.
It's like tacos. Just think about tacos.
Tacos, right?
Like what? That's not an English word, but we all completely understand what a taco is, especially in the last like 10 years since street tacos became a thing, and we're not just like referencing Taco Bell tacos,
right?
Right.
So yeah, since we get the rise of like all these like mom and pop taco shops, which were common much longer ago
in certain areas, absolutely.
But now they're like nationwide, right?
Yeah, now you can get that shit in Brooklyn.
Right.
How close is Brooklyn to fucking Mexico?
Right.
Not. It's not.
You can get those.
I can tell you for a fact, you could not get a good taco in New York 20 years ago. It just wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't. There was too much distance,
Yeah, no magic tacos.
Food. They didn't need fucking. Well, they did, but they didn't know they needed good Mexican food there.
So that's how the magic system works. And so what you have is a situation where Oxford, which is kind of the most powerful group of silver bar producers in the world at this stage, which makes the British Empire's their warships are way more superior than anyone else anyone could put out in the sea because they use these silver bars so effectively. But also they're used in like everyday kind of nonsense things to like improve the taste of food
or like in gardens
or
and
like
stuff
gardens
like
or
that.
stuff, like all these kind of wasteful things. And it's something that the main character, who changes their name in the very beginning of the book to Robin Swift, notices very quickly, like, you couldn't use these in my home country to cure illness like you do here, but you're gonna like frivolously use this resource of magic to like improve your garden.
Yeah,
like
Robin Swift is Cantonese, and he's half Cantonese, and he was raised on the docks down in Canton, and when he's brought to England, like one of the first things he noticed, like Michael said, is like how these silver bars are everywhere, and he had never seen one, or maybe he'd seen like one in his whole goddamn life till he's like 11 years old. Then he moves to England, and he sees them everywhere, and he's just like, this is fucking wild. Well, I imagine it's like going from Denver to iRobot, the Will Smith movie, you know? Denver now to New York and iRobot, or Chicago, or whatever that city was. And you're just like, goddamn, there's like flying cars and, you know, automatons walking around doing chores and shit like that. What the fuck is going on? Why didn't I have this? Yeah.
Vastly technologically superior.
Yeah.
So, and that's actually kind of a good point to transition us into the plot, because the book starts out and Robin is dying of cholera.
Yeah.
And
actually, the beginning of the book is really similar to the Kim Stanley Robinson book we read.
Yeah, it's a disaster.
First chapter of that. Yeah.
It's like a disaster situation.
Yeah, like everybody died.
Right. All these people are dying of cholera. But guess what? Silver, and this is what they call the magic system. They just call it silver. Mm-hmm. And the silver cures cholera.
Yeah.
And so, you know, but immediately his mom dies.
Yeah.
And he can do nothing about it. And that kind of haunts him. The fact that he's not able to save people, like, haunts him all throughout the book.
Yeah.
But I have a very long summary on my phone. So let's pull this up here, right? So he's adopted by a Professor Lovell. Mm-hmm. Who turns out is his father.
Yeah.
He's mixed between himself and this Cantonese woman. Mm-hmm. Professor Lovell is like this big Oxford linguist who turns out is a really
he's a piece of shit.
Terrible person.
Absolutely.
Very greedy, very racist, all kinds of stuff, right?
So racist.
So racist. You know, and so then you kind of go from that. His family dies, and Lovell is like, you can either live in poverty and squalor on the streets for the rest of your life, or you can come with me and maybe have a chance at like a real career in interpretation, because he knows English. Robin at this point already knows Cantonese and English extremely well, because
he's had mysteriously a nanny growing up who, like a white lady who tutored him and spoke to him in English and read English and taught him all that. Yeah.
And he loves books.
He loves books.
He loves Penny Dreadfuls.
He loves Penny Dreadfuls, favorite thing. And he loves Gulliver's Travels.
So then they kind of go through. There's a couple of chapters, or the whole next chapter is really about like his upbringing. Mm-hmm. And there's one kind of key point that like at one point he like questions his Professor Lovell, who doesn't actually adopt him as a father. He's considered his ward.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to like, you know, you find out later this is not the first time he's done this, and God knows how many times he's done this.
Yeah.
But he doesn't adopt him as his son, and then like Robin like just simply loses track of time reading a really interesting book, and he beats the living shit out of him.
Yeah, with a
cane, fire poker. Yeah, with a fire iron. And just like so you just see this real deep ugliness and this racism. And
it's a book that he bought him too as a treat.
Right.
It's like an adventure novel.
Right.
And that's the last time Robin reads adventure novels.
Yeah. So then he gets to Oxford, you know, and he meets Remy.
Yeah.
And Remy is
and they fall in love right the fuck away.
Do you think they're in love?
Yeah, obviously, man.
I just thought they just like. I didn't feel the queer coding in this one. I thought that they were just like.
Damn, really?
I just thought they were like deeply wonderful besties. I didn't get that in this book.
Okay.
Because there's all that stuff that was going on. Well, I guess that's right. There was the stuff with Letty. Maybe I just overlooked it.
There's a one point in the book where Robin asks Remy why he's not dating Letty because Letty loves him so much, and he just turns to Robin and he's like, Robin, you know why?
Yeah.
Because I'm gay.
Well,
But it's 1838 and I can't say that shit.
Right. But I didn't see it from Robin's side though.
Oh, they have a first magical day. They're like that whole the description of their first day on the Oxford campus is like the most romantic shit I've ever read.
Okay, fair enough.
They take a picnic up to a beautiful hill to watch the sunset over the spires of Oxford.
Fair enough.
And have wine.
Okay. I could definitely get your interpretation for sure. But anyway, they become like completely intertwined and like thick as thieves. Yeah. They're together the rest of the time, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Then you kind of meet they get a whole tour of Babel in the next chapter. And then
from the only other black student that's not in their grade level.
Right.
Anthony, who's
super cool. And then they meet Letty, who was the English Rose, they call her.
She's a white feminist.
She's a white feminist. And then you get also Victoire.
Who's the shit?
She is from Haiti.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm actually, like, I wanted to know more about her backstory, but you do not get her backstory until, like, the very
epilogue.
end.
The epilogue is where you get her backstory.
You get her backstory in the epilogue.
No, I think it's a really interesting technique that she utilizes there, because everything you learn about Victoire is stuff that Letty says that it turns out is not always true.
Yeah.
Because Victoire, like, as we come to find out at the very end of the book, spent the first half of her life in Haiti, but then moved to Paris later on and was like, it was a shitty situation for her, very Cinderella-esque in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And Letty's always talking about how Victoire is French and she's Parisian, because that's the sort of thing that Letty would like to believe. Because if Letty is to understand anything about Haiti, it's that it's full of, like, voodoo or whatever and racist shit.
And you have to also think about it this way. This is not long after the world's first successful large-scale slave revolt.
That's where I was going with
Haiti,
that. Exactly.
Right? So, like, the whole idea of Letty's existence Victoire's existence challenges everything Letty thinks and knows about the world.
Exactly.
You do get a brief taste of Letty's point of view, and oof,
it's sad. It's just sad.
It is. We'll get to it. So then
this way it's Bronte coded.
Yeah. And then so then you get one night, Robin runs into someone who looks a whole hell of a lot like him.
Mm-hmm.
And it turns out
his doppelganger at first.
His doppelganger at first, right?
Yeah.
In a way, he kind of is.
Mm-hmm.
He kind of is the darker side of himself.
Yeah.
The let's not say the darker. Let's say the liberated side.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Right? So he meets him. He learns about something called the Hermes Society, which is stealing silver bars and other resources from Oxford to a rebellion. An anti-colonial resistance faction.
That's so cool.
And you don't really learn a lot about it, Hermes Society, in the first third of the book. First half of the book, really. It's not until much later that we really get into understand what the Hermes Society is.
But so, like, the guy that looks like Robin is trying to do an invisibility spell with a silver bar, and it's not working. And the only reason that Robin is becomes aware of them is because he hears someone trying to say Chinese, trying to speak Chinese, and he's doing it a little bit off, and so then he goes over, he sees them, and he grabs the silver bar, says the word correctly. They all turn invisible, and then he's like, "You guys are still in silver. What the fuck?" And they just make off, and then that's kind of the last time he sees him until he's like, "Come meet me under this bridge."
Mm-hmm.
And then Robin is curious, and he does that kind of against his own better judgment, and finds out what the deal is.
Yeah.
And Michael just explained what the deal is.
Right. And so you have this resistance movement against British colonialism and talking about exploitation. Griffin, turns out, is also Professor Lovell's son. He was a failed version of Robin, according to Lovell, right?
Absolutely.
In other words, and he had basically removed him from China a little too young, so he didn't fully have his language. So he kind of just ultimately wasn't able to do the magic as well.
Absolutely.
But in the meantime, like, he becomes essentially like one of the resistance leaders.
Yeah, and he's like like if you imagine any movie about like the French Resistance, he's the guy with all the bombs and who's got like he's like a little unhinged.
Right. He's definitely,
he likes it too much.
Right. He likes the violence a little too much.
Yeah.
Okay. There was a lot of stuff. Okay. So he starts to kind of integrate into Oxford life, starts to go, they start going through, in a lot of ways, the first third of the book was very like, if Harry Potter was a good, thoughtful story, it would be this.
Absolutely.
Right.
That's how I described it to my friends.
Yeah, this is like, if Harry Potter actually had something really wonderful and interesting to say, but I don't want to just like, I don't also want to just like compare it to Harry Potter because it's so much more.
No, it has Harry Potter vibes. It's got the school story.
It's the dark academia. Dark academia.
Yeah, it's the school story element that J.K. Rowling was riffing off of.
From Wizard of Earthsea, from Ursula K. Le Guin. And
I was thinking more about like turn of the last century school stories, which are just about children in British boarding schools and them getting up to like little adventures, like little scrapes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
The coziness of a nostalgic experience that you might not have actually had.
And this gives you, this like period of the book gives you that sense of coziness. And once in a while throughout this period, Griffin shows up.
How appealing it would be
to
buy into the Oxford way of life.
Right. Into the colonial narrative.
Oh, absolutely.
Actually, I'll put a pin in that because I don't want to open that can of worms.
There you go.
Not yet. But it is. It's like, so it's this dark academia vibe, and he has scones, and I was just like kind of jealous of Robin's experience of like all of his ways paid for, and he gets to do nothing but sit there and study the things he loves.
Right.
Like, as an autistic person, this would be an ideal life for me.
Absolutely, I can see that.
So like,
I also would love to cozy up to like a nice like roaring fire with like my books in the middle of a British winter and just like sit there and just like be wrapped in a blanket and like doing a translation or like thinking about a story, like whatever the schooling is, It's very appealing.
Yeah, and then like, okay, so then they give you some explanation of basic linguistics, an explanation of the magic system. Then, like, skipping ahead several sections here, because that's mostly what they're talking about, is like school life and linguistics and that stuff. You get to this robbery that goes very wrong.
Yes.
With Robin, and he gets shot in the shoulder trying to rescue two members of the
doctor. Yeah, so the main, like the head of the school of translation at Oxford is this guy named like Dr. Playfair or something like that.
Playfair.
He does not play fair, that is.
No. He's also a terrible bigot.
He's a fucking bigot. He sucks so hard. But he seems really gregarious and entertaining at first, and he's like kind of theatrical. And what he does is he sets up all these little traps so that if anybody tries to get in to the translation department at Oxford and try to take something, there's like deadly consequences. It's like basically like the beginning of Raiders of the Lost Ark with all the like little machines that like shoot shit and whatnot.
Well, they know about the resistance.
And so Griffin like is sending his brother on these missions. And the mission, basically, Robin's part of the mission is just like to open the doors and stuff like that.
At first.
Mm-hmm. But in this one, that's the case. He opens the doors and he's just like hanging around.
Because Babel is protected by a magic system with the silver bars, where they actually take a vial of your blood and register it into the tower so that you can have free access. And if you're breaking in without permission after hours, these magical traps will unleash.
And so what's going on is like the Hermes Society keeps stealing silver from the department, but like the department is escalating their defense protocols correspondingly. So, but since Griffin's kind of out of the loop, he doesn't really understand how dangerous this shit is getting for his brother. And so during a heist, the two heistees get away, but Robin gets shot in the shoulder.
Yeah,
he has to like
shrapnel
he has to do like fucking surgery on himself to get that bullet out of there and whatnot. And
he says it's like a little graze, so it wasn't too bad.
And he has to like stitch it up.
But he manages to hide it and gets away with that.
Yeah. Well, he thinks he does.
Yeah, and then and then the next thing that happens is Anthony mysteriously dies.
Yeah, he dies at sea.
He dies at sea, or you think he does.
Well, yeah, exactly. I got a note in here that says the dead student with the desk memorial and the white girl's brother are both involved with the Hermes Society. I called Letty the white girl in my notes for the most part.
Yeah.
And Anthony and Victoire are as well. Anthony's disappearance is the clue. That's why I was figuring it out.
Something's up with these mysterious deaths.
They're all joining. Yeah.
But basically, Anthony's joined the Hermes Society full time.
Yeah.
And his backstory is pretty complicated too. I mean, I think the thing that's really amazing about this book is like the sincere, like well-developed side characters.
They're so good.
Like Robin is very clearly the main character, but the side characters are so well developed. Even like the little shitty like frat boys are kind of well developed.
Yeah, the one kid who thinks he's Byron.
Right. Yeah, he basically thinks he's Byron. Totally.
He's a piece of shit.
Yes. And he at one point Robin gets invited to a party early in the book, and he
owns him. It's so great.
He just owns them. He makes them feel so like intellectually inferior, and he just like walks out with a big old smile on his face, and all this stuff. And then they get into there's a little bit of a summary of the Luddite revolution that had recently happened, and so it's putting a little bit of there's a labor rebellion that has been going on, and that is not only about the Industrial Revolution, but actually the silver bars make it far worse.
Absolutely.
So
it's really cool.
It's like exacerbated, so it's like the Luddites were bad, but it's actually worse in this world because
the Luddites were cool, by the way.
Well, the situation of the Luddites were bad. What was happening?
Thank you. Yes.
That's what I meant by the Luddites were bad. No, the Luddites, like and I've said it before on I don't remember which episode. If you do not know the history of the Luddites, please look it up. Because if you're talking about significant and effective class rebellion, the Luddites are an example. It is not until they begin to execute members of the Luddites that the Luddites begin to collapse.
Absolutely.
But they had really complex, very strategic labor resistance movement. I mean, this was like these people were brilliant.
They were brilliant, and they incorporated like local communities into their efforts in a way that was super effective.
Right, and they a lot of times they were actually winning public opinion, and that's why they started executing them, and then started like,
that's why the Crown did like a reign of terror.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, she mentions this, they make like certain kinds of protests and organizing illegal, and all this stuff because of the Luddites. So that is kind of a lingering thing, and that's actually important to the plot towards the end of the book. So they get all the way through, like at this point, like you're getting into like their third year of school, and it's like a 4-year program. They go through like, test anxiety and all this other stuff, and they're just studying their asses off. Let's see. Also,
it like kind of fractures the group a little bit, the strain of it.
It does. They get kind of pissed off each other. They go off. They successfully pass their 3rd year exam, which is like a big deal because if you pass your 3rd year exam, you can actually go on and do work with silver. If you don't pass the 3rd year exam, you can't.
And not only do you not get to work with silver, like if you fail hard enough, they like take your vial of blood, smash it on the ground, and the building ejects you.
Yeah, the building ejects you, and you can't exit.
You can't
without an escort.
Yeah.
So right after this, they kind of they talk about going on like this postgraduate student tour of the fourth years, but that one ends up kind of coming early. But before that happens, before they can go on this, or no, sorry, right after they get back from their summer break after their testing exam, Remy and Victoire get caught in one of the traps.
And Robin like frees them, but then they catch him, and he has to spill a secret.
Right.
He has to spill like one of the hideout locations.
Right.
Of the Hermes Society.
And I forgot an important point. Him and Griffin at the end of the second year have a huge falling out.
Yeah.
After he gets shot, he tells Griffin, like, this is too dangerous. People are getting hurt.
Please go fuck yourself.
Like, please go fuck yourself. And Griffin is just like, tells him off and then just disappears.
Yeah, calls him a coward.
Calls him a coward.
Which he is.
Which, he
I mean, Griffin was endangering him, but like, I guess, so from Griffin's point of view, he's like, you are so comfortable, you have so much privilege. Why aren't you more angry? And the reason that Robin is not more visibly angry is because he's like trying to buy into the Oxford system to make his life more comfortable, because he, like, the circumstances in which he left China and in which Griffin left China were probably very fucking different.
Very different, yeah.
And so he's traumatized by that, and by like growing up with his father.
He's also, and Remy brings this up a couple of times with him. He's like, dude, you don't have any connection with your home country, because Remy does and Victoire does, and they feel like a connection to their culture.
They feel like really passionately about the countries
and defending their home countries.
Yeah.
But like he doesn't, because of the way he like has no one to go back to, and it turns out like opium had destroyed his family's wealth and all this stuff, and so like he has nothing to go back to. His family's all dead, and
and everybody who knew when he was living there is dead.
They're all dead. So he has no connection to his home life or culture anymore. He's kind of like totally disconnected. So he's kind of like in this weird feeling, and Griffin clearly has more of a connection
absolutely
to his home nation. So he's like, in a lot of ways, he's very orphaned from his own identity.
That's a great point. I hadn't thought about that. Everybody else in the Hermes Society has people back in their home countries
to defend,
and that's why they feel so passionately about what they're doing.
Right, and it takes Robin a lot longer to get there. A lot longer.
It takes him going on this trip, actually. That
yes,
we're just about to
about to discuss. Right, he takes the heat for Victoire and Remy. And you think that, oh shit, what's going to happen to him? But like Professor Lovell is like, slap on a wrist, you gave me a piece of information, we'll put you back in the thing. Just be grateful. This is like, the ungrateful theme, which we'll talk about after we're finished with the summary. I want to talk about that because it's one of those like,
and it's like the point where you're like,
uses
this
that word
guy's
a lot.
Fucking scumbag. Like you knew he was a bad dude, but you're like, is he just like an English father bad dude, or is he like a bad?
No,
dude?
he's a bad person.
Bad person.
He's like.
He's evil.
He's evil.
Yeah.
Like in like a very clear sense. There's no ambiguity.
Yeah.
He's an evil bastard. So they head up to Canton. There's like some sort of emergency thing going on. So they send the students early on their fourth year trip before they're even done their tests or anything.
Yeah.
So they have some of their knowledge of silverworking and silver bars. They've been studying for several months, and they go off to Canton. And Robin is like doesn't know how to feel about it. And then they get there and basically realize very quickly that they're a pawn in this whole thing.
Absolutely.
Robin has to interpret for this
English merchant dude.
He's like he's an opium merchant.
Yeah.
He's like a big and powerful, hugely wealthy merchant, and they're trying to get China to remove these restrictions on opium, and China's like, opium's killing our people, we're not going to allow you to sell opium. Yeah. So please take your opium elsewhere. The emperor is getting ready to pass a law stating that anyone caught trading opium, it will be decapitated. because it's so bad. It's literally like
all the English merchants too are just like, how can they do this to us?
it's free trade.
What free trade?
It's free trade. That's how we're going to liberate the people. So
Uh-huh.
Robin goes into this meeting with this like Chinese minister who is trying to explain his point of view, and then the trader is like, these savages don't understand free trade, and the amount of racism that comes out of that man's mouth in that section is so hard to read.
It's hard.
It was hard. I mean, obviously she's making a point of like how awful this.
Oh yeah,
these people were.
Yeah, it needed to be there.
Yeah,
but it's like you're reading it and you're just like, fuck.
Right. They're talking about the Chinese, by the way, are arguably continuously one of the most powerful civilizations of all of history.
Yeah.
Thousands of years,
Yeah.
you had Chinese empires.
Absolutely.
Right, and to call the Chinese primitive is
they just keep doing it too. They talk about how they're innately lazy.
All the
racist
stereotypes,
all the shit you expect. I don't even want to get into it really.
Right.
But yeah, Robin is like, he's translating for this guy, and the minister's just like, we're not going to do it. The conversation's over. I want to talk to this kid for a second though. And so he's like, do you think they're ever going to come around to our point of view that our borders are something that we should be in control of, and that we will not allow them to sell opium in this country? Or are they going to push back? And Robin's like, no, I think they really want this to happen. And if you don't like concede this point, it's that they have no room for negotiation from their point of view. And he's like, that's what I thought. Thank you very much. And have a good day.
And so the next morning, all the opium ships get set on fire.
It's so great.
It's amazing. The Chinese are like, fuck you, British.
Yep.
And set all the ships on fire.
Like 200 tons or whatever.
Yeah, they said it was like $5 or $6 million in 1830s money. So you're talking about pounds, right? Yeah, pounds. You're right.
That good money.
Yeah. My Americanness is showing. So then of course this creates a conflict. Professor Lovell pulls Robin aside. They're now headed back because now there's danger. So they're back on the sea voyage. They get into a huge argument, and he's like, maybe we can. Professor Lovell's like, if you're a good boy, maybe we can salvage this. And Robin has just had enough. He's just fucking done with this guy, like his own father. He's like, and so he brings up his mother. He's like, why did you let her die? Who was she to you? You're a coward. All this stuff, and the professor just like unloads this racist vitriol, and then
oh dude, he calls her the C word. You know which one I'm talking about.
Yeah.
He says she was just a C word, and Robin's just like with a silver bar that his brother gave him.
His silver bar. He uses a silver bar that his brother gave him, and it's the one that with Evie, right? It's the one that Lovell gave him. That he said, yeah.
That Griffin killed a girl with.
His doppelganger killed another girl, and you find out the whole backstory of this much later on.
Yeah, she was a traitor.
But she was a traitor as well. But he kills her kind of like on accident almost. Like it's like a moment of passion. And Robin ironically uses this same bar to kill his own father in a moment of passion and rage as well.
Yeah.
So then, of course, like immediately, like Remy and Victor are at the door. They were like headed his way, and so was Letty.
Yeah.
And they all are like, shit.
What do we do with this body?
What do we do with this body? They wrap it up in these really heavy ropes and toss it overboard and tell everyone he's sick. And then they go back to England, and they're trying to cover it up and hide it, and it becomes very clear very quickly that the other professors know what's going on.
Yeah.
So they finally defect to
when they first get to England, they go back to
Lovell's house.
Where
Robin grew up.
Yeah, in like Hertfordshire or whatever. And they're like going through his papers, and they find all this correspondence that's like the professors at Oxford and the business people who are selling opium trying to orchestrate a war.
Yeah, he's trying to start a war.
So he's yelling at Robin for like, why didn't this deal go through? But the deal was never supposed to go through.
He was a pawn.
And he was just mad that the opium got burned. That was it.
Yeah, that was
it. And And so, yeah, they're just doing this to start a war so they can get all the silver out of China, because China has apparently the most silver, which makes sense. It's fucking China. It's so goddamn big. And yeah, so then they go back to, like you were saying, they go back to Oxford, and it's very clear all the professors know. And basically, like, after a garden party where all the professors are acting weird, it's like the start of the semester or whatever, the term garden party. The start of Hillary term, the term system over there is so goddamn weird. I don't understand it. It's like Michaelmas and Hillary and one other weird holiday or whatever.
Yeah.
After the start of the Hillary term garden party, because that's the kind of school this is. Like Professor Playfair's like, "Hey Robin, I'm part of the Hermes Society," and Robin's like, "Good, guys, we got to get out of here."
Yeah.
And so they
Robin's like really clever about it.
Yeah.
He's like, I just wanted to talk about the plot in Canton. And Robin's like, there was no plot in Canton. Oh, he's like, yes.
Yeah, the Canton plot.
The Canton plot. And he's like, yes, tell me all about the plot.
Ooh.
You know, where did it go wrong with the plan, with Griffin's plan? Because they all know about Griffin.
Mm-hmm.
And they all know about the Hermes Society. Mm-hmm. And he's like, shit. So he grabs all his friends. They get out, they run. And just as like they're about to be caught, it's Antony who grabs them, who's still alive, grabs them, and apparently like takes them to a section of the library in Oxford that was just
an abandoned library.
An abandoned library in Oxford, and that they're basically hiding in the whole Hermes.
Yeah, so they got silver bars, making it like harder to see kind of thing. But also, it's basically just bureaucracy is the reason that this library is abandoned and unused by any school, because Oxford's like, that's too run down. We couldn't possibly be seen having a rundown library. And other schools in the area are like, I think that belongs to Oxford, actually. I don't know.
Yeah, no, everyone is like, wait, which department, which school does that belong to?
What?
That belongs to you guys, right? No, it belongs to you guys. And no one really cares.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's been like abandoned for like a decade or more.
Yeah.
And so they're using this as their hideout, and they show them like this area where they're making silver bars, where they're building resistance.
It's so cool. It's like a mirror version of Babel, which is the school at Oxford.
It's a tower.
The tower, the translation school.
Of course it's a tower.
If people say you're a Babel scholar, of course.
A babbler.
Or a Babel scholar, then that means that you work at the Tower of Babel. Because the thing about Oxford is it's like a town that is famous for its spires. Mm-hmm. So I'm just saying the author did an amazing job thinking this whole thing out.
Well, she went to Oxford.
She went to Oxford, so obviously, but no, I mean, but like putting a Tower of Babel in a translation department, it's very smart.
Brilliant.
It's very smart. But yeah, no, it's like a mirror version of the Tower of Babel, because they're like actually collaborating on doing real scholarship for translation to help people and to expand knowledge instead of just trying to acquire it. Because what they do is they use the materials that they have that they can steal from the preeminent translation department in England, but then they disseminate it to other places and they translate into languages that are not just English, because that's the thing that they do there. Is they translate everything into English so they can use it themselves.
Right.
And it's really cool, and it lasts after our protagonists get there for like a week until Letty betrays them because she sucks.
Yeah. So Letty one time so they're all sitting there. So importantly, they're an anti-war. They're trying to start an anti-war campaign, and you get a little bit of the politics of Parliament here, and talking about how we really don't want British to go to war with China because they'll just destroy it, and that actually it will make colonialism and the British Empire even more powerful and more exploitative and all this stuff. So their whole big thing right now, Antony and the others are trying to make leaflets and pamphlets and try to stop the war stop the war. And then Griffin is like, no, guys, this isn't enough. We need to take over the Tower of Babel. And we just need to it would be so easy to just do it. We need to use violence.
You go in there with one gun and take it over.
Right,
he's not wrong.
It turns out he's not wrong.
Yeah, he's not
which
wrong.
We'll get to in a minute.
Yeah.
But so Griffin is basically gives this whole speech. He's like, and I want to pull some quotes after we're done with the summary here because the speech was incredible. The conversation between him and Robin, just it's just this very powerful and moving speech about about how like colonialism is inherently violent. It is always state violence practiced against the oppressed and the exploited, and it has no good ends. And the only language that they understand is violence because they operate through violence regularly, right?
Yes.
So Griffin is like giving this, and he's teaching how to shoot a gun and all this stuff. And then like Griffin goes off on some mission. I think he was going to Wales or
Yeah, he's going to Wales to do
something.
terrorism.
Well, they don't know because they don't always
Resistance.
tell everyone.
Yeah.
They try to keep on the down low what
Yeah.
everyone is doing where.
He was gonna do something with explosives.
Something with explosives. He was gonna go boom.
Yeah.
And so he leaves, and then like the next day, the police bust in, and Letty had betrayed them.
Yeah.
So all the friendship that they had all through these years with Letty, and she just
She betrays them and personally shoots Rami.
and kills Remy.
Yeah.
Yep. Now, like at first, like my first impression of her killing Remy was that it was like she was trying to shoot Robin and Remy jumps in the way.
Mhm.
But then like as like the conversation persists about what happened, it kind of feels like she intentionally kills Remy.
Absolutely.
Like aims and shoots Remy on purpose
Mhm.
because he scorned her.
Yes. How dare a brown man not want to marry a white girl who's in love with him?
Not want the English rose, is how they put it.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
So this beautiful and she was an admiral's daughter, so she knew how to shoot, and she was there, and you get
definitely wasn't an accident.
Definitely wasn't an accident.
Yeah.
So she kills. Remy's dead. They're in prison.
Victoire and Robin.
and
Obviously
Robin-
not Letty. Yeah.
Victor and Robin are getting tortured for information.
They both think the other one dies at a certain point,
Yeah.
which is just a trick that the captors use. Yeah.
And then
Griffin saves the day.
Griffin blows everything up and comes on in.
Hell yeah.
And he's like, "What silver did you use?" Like, "Nothing. I just used gunpowder."
I use
man."
guns. Have you ever think about this? You guys can't always be using silver.
He's like, "Don't always use silver. Don't become rely on it.
Yeah.
Resist right."
Yeah.
So they get out, or they're trying to get out, and this guy Spencer, who's one of his interrogators, who's also like one of the upperclassmen,
Who was a classmate of Griffin's.
of Griffin. Yeah.
Mhm.
He was sorry, one second. Sorry guys, I had surgery, and it still hurts sometimes.
Yeah.
Anyway, him and Griffin end up killing each other. But
Yeah.
and there's this one brilliant thing about this book is there's these like end notes, or like these notes in the page, almost like you're reading a scholarly text, like it's like a history novel. It's
Or a Discworld novel.
or yeah, but it's but either way, so they give you like a little brief background talking about how you had no idea what the relationship was. They like Spencer and Griffin and Evie, who Griffin accidentally killed, they were all like as tight as Robin and Victor and Remy and Letty and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a betrayal there too. So there's like this old hatred, and they end up killing each other. And Victor and Robin escape, and they're like, we got to take Babel.
Yeah.
Like that's like, we're gonna take Babel.
Yeah. Robin says, I want to take it down, and Victoire says, I want to burn it to the ground.
Right.
Which is sexy.
Yeah.
And so they do. They go in there with a gun, and
they go in with the gun, and they basically take them hostage and they say, this is what's going on.
Mhm.
They expose that Professor Lovell was making war intentionally to exploit Canton and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And so two of the professors, is it
two
professors?
Professor Kraft and Professor, he was Indian, like Ravashami or something.
I can't remember what his name was.
My bad.
Yeah, sorry guys. There's a lot of characters in this book. It's hard to keep track of them all.
Yeah. They decide to take the tower, and they kick out all the students that don't align with them.
Right.
And they break their blood vials on the ground.
And a number do stay behind.
And a number do.
And,
absolutely.
And so here's the key thing, and this is really important. So Babel is like the administrator of all the silver in London. Without Babel making the silver, maintaining the silver, and also
the spells that go along with
it. They have these things called residence rods, which maintain the integrity of the silver at a distance, so they don't have to keep reinstalling silver everywhere all the time.
Absolutely.
Are also housed in this tower. So all of the power of silver is housed and concentrated in one space. It's a monopoly in Babel. It's a very
more or less. There are other sites in like Edinburgh and Cambridge.
sites.
Yeah, but it's almost it's so funny because at a certain point they're explaining it and they're like, yeah, we have these other locations, so it's not all dependent on one institution, but it actually is dependent on one institution because the way academia works is it's very competitive. And it's kind of zero sum as far as academics are concerned.
Right.
Knowledge actually isn't zero sum, but prestige is. So
gotta get that tenure, guys.
Oxford has been, he knows, Oxford has been hoarding the best spells and the best silver techniques and stuff like that, despite the fact that it works against the country's best interest. So throughout this, there's like basically a siege happens after this, and it's supported by the Luddites, led by a man named Abel, who's super fucking cool.
Yeah. Shows up at the door and like sets up barricades all around. He's like, these are gonna help you guys. We're gonna man the barricades.
Yes.
We're gonna keep it out because this is their way of saying if we take away their silver and their demand is don't go to war, and we also get like amnesty, right?
Yeah.
So we get amnesty for everything that's happened, and then also you're not going to go to war with China, and if you don't, we're gonna stop getting silver out there. And at first, like nothing happens, no one reacts
for a couple days,
and then one of the buildings, which apparently was entirely held up by the magic of silver, collapses.
Exactly.
And then they realize they have these resonance rods, and they start pulling these resonance rods. Other elements of silver all over the country are going to start to undo their magic. So they start pulling rods every day, and then you start to see like British society starts to break down.
Yeah. Throughout this, Victoire wants to be a little more generous and only like pull out like 5 rods a day. And Robin is so incensed at this point because of the betrayal of Letty, the death of his boyfriend Remy that hadn't actually come to fruition, and the death of his brother. He wants fucking blood.
He wants blood.
So he wants to knock out like 25 of them a day.
He's like it has to be violence.
Exactly.
They're not going to listen otherwise.
Exactly. And they're going through the records of the resonance rods, and they realize that the
one of the major bridges.
The bridge of Westminster is due to collapse if it's not bolstered through spells in a week. And so they let people know. Parliament lets it crumble. Parliament does not concede. And at that point, Robin's like, we just got to bring this whole fucking thing down. Abel comes up to him one day and he's like, they're going to send in the military.
We can't hold it. Well, it already started.
They had been going back and forth for like
skirmishes in the streets, and people on the workers' movement are dying.
But Abel's like, tomorrow's the day.
He's like, we can't hold out anymore. I'm sorry. We don't want to abandon you, but there's just no way we can stop. The full British military will be bringing its force to bear.
Yes.
And so
you might want to get out or do whatever you got to do.
Right. So Abel is like, here, we have a plan to get you out tonight. Anyone who wants to leave can get out. And Robin is like,
I can't do it.
They can't do it.
Yeah.
And Robin is, I think Robin is also, there's multiple times in the book when he gets kind of talked off the ledge, like literally in one point, Remy talks him off the ledge.
Yeah.
But like, he's just like, he tells Victoire, he's like, I can't go on without Remy, without all of this stuff. There's no point in me living anymore.
Yeah.
And he's like, I want my death to mean something.
Exactly.
And so they decide, and they show them earlier in this book, there's this one set of match pairs. That's what they call them when they have the silver bars.
Yeah.
There's one set of match pairs that kind of cancel each other out and shatter silver. So, and Babel is held up by a lot of silver.
What it is translation. You can't translate translation.
Right, you can't translate the translation word.
Everybody who stays behind is translating translation.
Right. So they all set up at different posts in the thing, and they blow up Babel and sacrifice himself. Victoire leaves with, was it Jordan, who was like the youngest kid?
Yeah.
He was the youngest resistant member. He was first year.
There were like half of them leave with Victoire, and the epilogue has Victoire like riding a horse, galloping,
thinking about
dramatically, thinking about everything she's gonna do, and thinking about like starting other liberation movements.
Yeah.
Which is super fucking cool.
And maybe one day returning to Haiti and like, you know, empowering her culture and all this stuff.
Yeah, but making sure that Letty never finds out that she's alive. Because Letty thought that they were best friends. But like, as it turns out, friendship with Letty was not a positive thing for Victoire. Because Letty never understood anything about Victoire's life in a real way. She just wanted to believe that things were good for a Haitian girl in 1830s Oxford.
Right.
And like, how could that possibly be the case? At one point, Letty's like, why aren't you happy?
Why aren't you grateful?
Why aren't you grateful?
Grateful all the time, that word.
And Victoire's like, I can't use the lavatory.
Mm-hmm.
And you've never noticed in 2.5 years that I always have to go to the outhouse if I want to relieve myself. I'm not allowed to use the facilities in our place that we rent.
Yeah, and there's just one moment when Robin is like...
And other things like that. Like, there's a lot of examples she gives.
There's one moment when Robin is... when Robin is like realizing what the situation is for Victoire. This is after Remy has died and Letty has betrayed them.
Because Robin can also kind of pass a little bit from a distance.
From a distance he can pass. But passes white, to be clear. But
they heard us talk about passing. They know what passing is.
Yeah. True. But there's this moment where Robin realizes, he's like, man, I had Remy this whole time to give me relief when I was struggling with all the racism and the discrimination. But Victoire had nobody.
No.
She had Letty, and Letty just reinforced all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Letty is like, and I literally have this, Letty is the stand-in for the well-meaning liberal.
She's a white feminist.
She's a white feminist.
She is.
100%.
No, because, so Letty's situation is explained briefly in an interlude. Basically, she had a brother who wasn't talented, who went to Oxford. And Oxford wasn't a good place for him to be. He was like a country squire. He loved being outside and riding horses and shooting animals and shit like that. Mm-hmm. And so him going to Oxford was basically torture for him. But she wasn't allowed to go to Oxford because she was a woman, as far as her father was concerned. As long as he had a son, why the fuck am I going to send my daughter to Oxford? Which, I want her to get educated? Yeah, right. And so... eventually, her brother ends up like offing himself. He kills himself. He becomes an alcoholic. He's just like lashing out. He's getting into trouble, and then he kills himself because his life sucks. And finally, Letty's able to convince her father to like send her to Oxford because if you got at least like one kid's got to do something, right? And that's her backstory. It's kind of sad, but it's like it's just like the sad events that happen to like a wealthy white person. Like everybody's got a little bit of tragedy, but Letty, because she experienced something sad, thinks that she can relate to her friends who are like expatriates who experience racism on a daily basis.
Well, and
aren't accepted at a school for scholarship. Like they're like the brightest scholars at the most prestigious school in the country that she's from, but are still treated like second-class citizens all the time.
Right. It's like the whole myth of the exceptional minority.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's that racist thing that white people say, you're a credit to your race.
Yeah.
Right? That kind of like passive aggressive nonsense.
They get that shit all the time too.
Right. So they're getting this shit all the time, and they're trying very hard to explain it to Letty. And Letty, you don't really see Letty's train of thought until one interlude when right after she kills Remy, you get her kind of point of view for one chapter. Mm-hmm. And it is like...
they're going too far.
They're going too far, but also like, well, how come no one ever thought of what it's like to be discriminated against as a woman? Mm-hmm. And it's like Victoire experiences that, and she experiences like racism because she's a black woman.
Yeah, but Letty can't see that. Letty's just like, but Victoire's my friend, and she's a woman, so she should relate to me and what I'm experiencing, and why won't Remy love me? And because I'm pretty and white, and she never even occurs to her that, like, one, he might not want to marry a white girl if he was going to marry a girl. And two, he's gay. Letty.
I don't know why I didn't pick up on it, but now you say it's so obvious.
Letty, he's not down because he doesn't do that.
I thought him and Victoire were going to hook up, and then when it never happened, I was like, why didn't that plot point ever come? But now it makes so much more sense.
No, Victoire had a crush on Robin, man.
I not got that at the end, but then yeah.
But Robin also
Anyway.
wasn't down. So
Robin.
but Victoire clocked it and was like, it's okay and we can just be friends.
I kind of pegged Robin almost as asexual.
No, I think if anything, I think he was bisexual. He was in love with Rami, but he also did have there were moments of attraction to Victoire that are like at the dance they go to.
That's true. Like that. Yeah, he was like his
stocks were knocked off. He's just walked out,
and Victoire's like, "Do you like my dress up?
Do you want to dance?" He's like, "I can dance."
Until some racist nonsense.
Oh, of course, some racist nonsense happened.
Yeah,
so that's the story. It's super fucking great. It's such a good read. We didn't do it justice in our recounting of it. The prose is
incredible,
immaculate.
Yeah, it is. It is so the quality of the writing and the quality of the story. You know, a lot of times when you're reading books, you get a good story, but not necessarily incredible writing. This author is both. She's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many quotes here. I've got starred, and you see,
yeah.
The rabbit dies and the fox grieves. That was after Letty's betrayal.
Yo,
yeah, it's an old Chinese idiom, right? It's like the fakeness of grief, right?
Yeah, crocodile tears.
Crocodile tears. Yeah, crocodile tears. I think there was one thing I really wanted to point out about like Letty, and I had written this before the betrayal. It was like a note I put, and I still think it stands, even though Letty did ultimately like fail and betray them. But it's like this idea of, and I know this partly from personal experience. When you're like a white person and you grow up in this privileged system, your whole identity is wrapped up in that this system is good, that you're a good guy.
Absolutely.
And so since your identity is all wrapped up in that, once you start to peel back those layers and see, holy shit, my ancestors or the system that I participate in on a daily basis are really ugly. It really fucks with your head.
It does fuck with your head. It's true.
It's like someone tore up your whole reality and threw it in the fire, and you're just like, I don't know what to do. And so you have this kind of identity crisis. And the only way you get through that identity crisis in a positive direction is if someone you trust helps guide you through that.
That's so true.
It's either, like in my case, it was professors, and then also like working in communities of like other cultures and other countries, where I suddenly was like around these people who are really human, and I'm seeing what they're going through.
Absolutely.
And that was like, okay, then I can fix my identity on the fact that like my identity became a thing of like, oh, I'm going to do my best to try and understand the pieces of the puzzle that I've been missing.
Yeah.
But if you have no support person, and this is, again, the reason why it's so important to have brave conversations with your friends and your family members.
Yeah.
If you don't have someone you can trust, if you just have some random person on the internet tell you that your history is racist and your culture is a piece of shit, then what you get is backlash. The person retreats into it and doubles down on their ideas.
There's a really tragic moment in the book where when they're on the ship to Canton, so it's hard for them to have the conversation about like why like Robin took the blame for the Hermes Society action that Victoire and Rami get caught in. And so they're able to have a very brief conversation because Letty's always around, right? They have a very brief conversation where Robin's like, I know about the Hermes Society.
And Letty's not a part of the
I was in the Hermes Society. And Rami's like, what the fuck, bro? Why didn't you tell me? And Victoire's like, calm down, let him talk. And then Letty shows up, right? So then they're on the boat. And Letty's always around, but she's clocking that her friends are like having drama and nobody will explain what it is to her. And then like they get there, they can't have a conversation either there because Professor Lovell's around, he's making them do stuff, and then they go back and then the murder happens. And so Letty finally is included after like an act of violence happens, and then she's like, wait, what? Like, why are you guys doing this? Why aren't you grateful? You know, but they're so pissed at each other and so stressed out by covering up the murder of their professor that they can never really explain to her in a way that she can hear
Right.
what's going on,
Right.
because everything is filtered through the act of violence that they did.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't able to explain their positions before they did an extreme action.
Right.
And I think that I don't think Letty would have heard them necessarily, but I'm just thinking about Letty like trying to talk to all of her friends, and none of her friends will talk to her because they can't, because of the thing they're hiding, the secret that they can't share with her, because their very safety depends on them keeping quiet.
So for Letty's point of view, Letty feels like her friends betrayed her first.
Yeah.
Essentially. And the author doesn't come out and say that directly, but it's heavily implied.
Yeah.
And that's some of the justification that, like, why aren't they grateful for all the opportunities they've been given? Like, I'm really grateful for the opportunity I've been given. Instead, they're going on this violent path, but there's other, like, we can reform through peaceful measures. It's the old liberal, let's reform the bad thing.
Yes, let's change it from the
inside.
Like,
which is, I will say, can be very important too, but it can't.
I was just going to say change from the inside is bullshit. Because you're always corrupted by the system that you swim in. You're always corrupted by those waters.
I do think there's moments when having an insider pushing at the same time there's outside, you can't do it without the outside pressure.
Sure.
Reform from the inside does never really happen.
No.
But I think in concert with outside pressure, inside pressure, you can have the right person in the right spot to make the right decision at the right time that would change the game. That can work, but I do think that without the outside pressure, that never happened.
Okay.
People always are then corrupted by the system without the outside pressure.
I think you're probably right. I think you do. The danger of it, or the reason that it almost never works, like having people try to change the system from inside, is because you're always corrupted by that power that you have access to,
and you get comfortable
when you're inside the system, and you get comfortable. And you start to think about your own situation.
Right.
And like, oh man, like, I do want to change things, but I also want that bonus, or I do want to change things, but if I get this legislation passed, then I can get reelected. Well, and then if I'm reelected, I have a better chance of changing things.
And the old classic, I've worked so hard to get here, I don't want to throw it away.
Absolutely.
Like that's
absolutely
right. You spend 20 years developing a career, and then suddenly, like, you're like, well, shit.
My career matters too.
Well, and you might have a family.
Oh my god! I gotta protect my family.
Right, I gotta protect my family. I can't take a big risk, and so that ends up happening. But I will say, if you have the right person who is sympathetic to your cause on the inside, and you make a major push from the outside, and you have a couple of allies on the inside, that's the only way that real change can take root in an existing system.
Yeah.
And the danger is of tearing down a system is you never know what you're going to get in the aftermath. Like, again,
a reign of terror.
Yeah. The French Revolution becomes the Napoleonic Wars.
Yeah.
Like, so you don't always never know what you're going to get if you burn the system to a ground. So it's not just it's not reform and it's not rebellion. I feel like it's got to be somewhere in the middle, and that's a really, really tricky fine line to walk.
I mean, absolutely.
Which I think
you get rid of the Galactic Empire, and then you get an ineffectual New Republic that does nothing.
And you get the First Order.
And then you get the First Order.
Right.
Right.
Right. Or you get a series of democratic policies that really don't address the middle class at all, because all these people have become insiders.
Sure.
And then what you get is a populist. Yeah,
you finally get a Democratic president, and he does a better job of Reaganomics than Reagan did.
Yeah, right. So, yeah, well, and
fucking Clinton.
I know,
man.
Clinton.
That guy can suck so many dicks.
The more time passes, the more apparent that Clinton is just Reagan 2.0.
Absolutely.
Like, there is nothing really democratic about him. He increased the drug war of Reagan.
He deregulated the banks,
which furthered inequality,
which led to the 2008 financial crisis.
Right. Reagan started it, but he happily carried on the torch.
Man, Bill Clinton just Reagan laid it up, and Clinton slam dunked that shit, man.
Yeah. He
fucked that guy.
Yeah. So, there's some other things. Oh, there's so much. Like, we're not gonna have time to talk about everything.
No. It's a good book, guys. You should read it.
There is one great quote from Kathy, one of the upperclassmen who is Irish, who is like really sad about having lost Gaelic because you know, of course, the British are.
She was Scottish, but she might have been Irish.
They mentioned Gaelic.
Well, I mean, Scots speak that too.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe she was Scottish.
Yeah.
Maybe because I think she was from Edinburgh, wasn't she?
I thought so, yeah.
Either way, Kathy says, because there's a one point when they talk about the taking of the tower, and they're talking about like the consequences of the concentration of it's the silver monopoly, right? And then they're also talking about how like she's talking about how Gaelic has died out, and it's actually decreasing the effectiveness of the magic in the world because of British colonialism. Absolutely. And she says, quote, "That's the great contradiction of colonialism. It's built to destroy that which it prizes most."
Absolutely, man.
So at the end of the day, colonialism is self-destructive.
Yes, it is.
It's a temporary high. It's like fascism or techno-fascism. Techno-fascism, right? Ultimately, all these tech bros are destroying the very system that they have set up.
Absolutely, man. Tech bros are doing the same thing to the internet as a system that the American government is doing to all of the infrastructure in the nation, like all of the pipes, all of the roads, everything we rely on to do commerce has been neglected and like has not been maintained to a satisfactory manner so that it will start crumbling in the next 10 to 20 years if we don't do something about it, but nobody ever wants to do anything about it because it's one, infrastructure is a boring thing to talk about, and two, it costs so much money.
You don't make money.
And it inconveniences so many people when you try to repair it.
Yeah.
That's the reason that I don't know if they've ever maintained or repaired one track in the fucking New York subway. Because
I have no idea.
Everybody relies on it, you know?
Yeah.
And also we have no other systems to like shift people onto because we never thought to like build in redundancies or anything like that. And the reason, if you ever think to yourself, man, my phone works less good than it did 5 years ago. Man, my computer or email or this app works less good than it did 5 years ago. The reason for that is that tech bros only want to build a new thing or disrupt an industry. That's where they get all their money from. They don't get it from maintaining like Instagram or, you know, like the fiber optic cables that send signals all over the place.
Yeah.
That's not cool. That's not edgy. That's not disruptive. You know, you can't be a badass doing that.
That's enshittification.
Yeah.
The enshittification.
Enshittification.
Yeah, look it up if you don't know that term. That's what's going on the
internet. Absolutely.
This also...
Because they want to sell you a new thing, that's why.
Exactly. They don't make any money. You want to make your, intentional obsolescence, where the technology dies after a certain rate, so people have to buy new things. We don't make things like they used to, literally, because it doesn't make profit, all kinds of problems, right? So this is essentially, you know, capitalism, colonialism, they destroy the thing that they prize most, right? Absolutely. And this is a key point here. There's another thing that this book made me think a lot about, that's the Occupy movement. And the reason it made me think about that is because what they had going on in the library was kind of this like decentralized network and organization. They had certain missions and goals, but everyone kind of did their own thing.
Yeah.
And it ultimately is not very effective until they take a direct strategic goal, a direct strategic action with a direct ask. And the problem ultimately of Occupy was it was too all over the board.
Yeah.
They weren't strategic. I mean, I think Occupy was great in some ways because it changed the conversation about wealth and inequality. We get the branding from like David Graeber about the 99% versus the 1%. So it gives us a new language to speak, but that's all it really did.
I think that the Occupy movement also did suffer from like the fact that it was so diffuse really allowed a lot of elites to discount it out of hand.
Or co-opt it.
Or
mock it
like Jon Stewart like did every fucking night on the Daily Show,
which pissed me the hell off.
Absolutely, me too. I loved that guy, you know, when I was young. When I was a young man, I thought Jon Stewart was cool and smart.
Me too.
As an old man, I understand that he's a hack and dumb. And the thing about diffuse movements is that they like ideologically that is what we want. We want a diffuse group of people moving in the right direction.
Mhm.
But when you're doing an action, it has to be one action.
When you're facing power, you have to play chess.
Absolutely.
And that means you're going to have to use a variety of tactics and strategies to address the issue.
Yeah.
And, I think
brass knuckle chess.
Brass knuckle chess. I think this is really well captured in the film Gandhi. In the 80s film in 1980 with Ben Kingsley.
Yeah.
When he is in the midst, I think this is it's been a while since I've seen it. This is in like one of the South Africa sequences, and he's staring down the British colonial governor of South Africa, and he is just successfully. I believe this is the moment, but it's been a while.
Yeah,
he's successfully staring down this guy. They had just finished with his protest for the identity cards, and Gandhi was like burning them along with all of the other protesters.
Yeah.
And the British guy comes in, okay, we'll stop the identity cards, but we're not giving you this, we're not giving you this, we're not giving you that, because I know you all want all that stuff, but we're only taking away the identity cards. And Gandhi sits back and he says, well, the identity cards was the issue on which we focused. And then he took the victory, turned around, and the next day started protesting the next issue.
Yeah.
So one by one, he addressed one issue at a time.
Absolutely.
And he focused. And a lot of the problem with a lot of leftist politics these days is we're all over the place. We are scattershot. And
so you sent me a video
yeah,
the other day.
From the Doom Scroll
podcast. And I thought it was interesting in a lot of ways. And I didn't agree with every point they made.
As no one should agree with anything everyone says anyway. Have your own damn mind.
Absolutely. That's a great point. But I did think that they made some interesting points about the tactics that leftists use and the fact that we might focus too much on identity politics in lieu of actual structural fixes to broad swaths of problems. Like, problems facing most people happen to do with, since we live in a capitalism, lack of resources, monetary resources, and lack of access to health care.
Right.
And I think focusing on either of those, like a UBI for everyone, not just for the poor, for actually everyone.
We talked about this earlier.
Yeah, we were back from tacos. We were
getting tacos.
This.
It's got to be for everyone, even billionaires.
Even billionaires.
It's got to be for everyone, or else it causes conflict.
Guys, there aren't that many billionaires,
and they're not even going to notice.
And they won't even fucking notice. Like, if billionaires are getting an extra $50,000 a year, but everybody else is getting $50,000 a year, that's good for everybody else. Billionaires won't even fucking care, and we can't be like mean about it. Like, they don't need it. They got billions of dollars. But if you have to employ guys, and I mean guys in the gender neutral sense that we use in Colorado and most of the West, if you have to employ people to like sit there and determine, well, this person doesn't get it because they're over the threshold, and this person doesn't get it because they're like not working enough or something like that, it's not going to work as a fix. It has to just be simple to the point of like, it takes a dozen people to administer it nationwide, you know?
And not only that, if the goal of all the identity politics work that we do, of trying to get people rights, if the goal is giving everyone dignity, then what do we do?
Fix poverty.
But fixing poverty is giving everybody the opportunity to dignity. And if you say everyone gets this thing condition-free, that's dignity.
Yes, exactly.
And so, we have to really work more towards how do we fix the problems and focus less on, okay, I need to get my cause addressed. And that doesn't mean we don't address those causes, by the way.
No.
But it means if we're trying to find a unifying principle to fight back against a wannabe fascist,
right,
then the way that we do that is to make sure that everyone gets dignity and everyone gets their basic needs met.
I know.
That's where we begin.
They're trying to come at DEI because they want like, because one, it's kind of a nebulous concept to a lot of people. Obviously, we all know what DEI is here, but like in broad swaths of the country, people are like, DEI, what's that? That's the reason I didn't get that job, probably, you know? And it's like an easy thing to blame, but it's like also kind of, when you think about it, it's like a little nitpicky fix. And it's also an industry that consultants, like, it's like a $3 billion industry every year. And it's like, it's kind of bullshit when you really think about it. Like, it's built on a house of cards. It's built on like people having to do like hiring equity from like the 60s, where they just like made up all the protocols, like, and corporations in the fucking 60s. It's like Procter and Gamble came up with half the DEI shit we have.
I was about to say, it's kind of like the carbon footprint idea that Exxon, so someone came up with this carbon footprint idea, or someone came up with what they used to, it was called affirmative action for a while before it was called DEI, right? So they come up with these concepts and they say, if we do this, we can't get sued, or we can redirect the focus, or we're not actually addressing the structural issues of corporate inequality and lack of pay and all this stuff.
DEI is just corporations don't want to get sued.
And I also, like, I'm saying all this as a person who's done DI consulting and also as a person who's taught diversity, equity, inclusion in college classrooms. But like,
diversity and equity and inclusion are all great things. But a DEI program in your company is not going to fix racism. It absolutely will not fix racism.
And it doesn't fix inequality.
And it doesn't fix inequality, and it doesn't fix like lack of inclusion for people. But as Michael so astutely pointed out, if you want to like actually like fix the results of racism and lack of equity and lack of inclusion, a UBI is a pretty good start to that, because you're giving people enough money to live on in a way that like gives them dignity. So they don't have to they don't have to do all kinds of shit. They don't have to do anything that Jay-Z talked about in his first 3 albums, you know? They don't have to stand on a corner and hustle to get by. And nobody wants to do that. Nobody wants to see that out in the world. But that's what people have to do to provide for their family. So if we want to fix the fucking drug problem, if we want to fix gang violence that actually does exist, not the kind of gang violence that everybody's talking about in the 90s that was mostly fucking media bullshit to fund police departments and stuff like that. If you want to fix, like, you know, the problem of people like not feeling like dignity in their jobs, so they go out to the bar and have too many drinks with their friends and then go home and beat people, like, fucking UBI, man.
Yeah,
it's pretty simple.
And there's a lot of research going on different UBI experiments. The results have been fantastic so far.
Easy.
So I definitely encourage that. I also encourage, if you want to look at history of work and labor and how we got to this kind of weird managerial class sort of situation, I would read David Graeber's book "Bullshit Jobs." It's a well worth a read. The last chapter starts to cover UBI. He didn't really get into great depth with it. He just says, "Hey, go check out this research on UBI. Here's some research."
The research was like pretty new when he was writing that book.
Right. He's writing this in like 2014, 2015. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think we need to play chess with stuff. So like, you have to think about what are the issues in your community. How can you pull together as a community and solve them, right?
Absolutely.
And this is what happens with the book. Like, he's like, what is the linchpin of this whole British Empire? In this particular world, it's the silver bars.
Absolutely.
Right? So what is that? What can we pull? We can pull the pin.
It's an unlikely alliance, too, between labor activists and anti-colonialists.
Yeah,
you know?
Because in the beginning, actually, they hate all the labor people. Like, he throws an egg at Robin or something.
At Victoire.
At Victoire.
Yeah.
Because they're scholars, right?
Yeah.
And Victoire.
And they see the scholars, rightfully so, as supporting and reinforcing the system that is taking their dignity away from them by taking their trades and turning them into jobs.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, before there was a trade that they were an expert at, and they might be the best one in their county, or they might have studied under the guy that came up with this new technique, and that gave them prestige and a means to provide for their family. And they were like an artisan, and then all of a sudden now it's mechanized, and it's like chopping people's limbs off for efficiency's sake and shit like that, you know? So they're rightfully pissed off at these, like, you know, there's this old like dichotomy in a lot of like college towns where there's like the gowns and the townies, you know? And so the townies were, you know, throwing eggs at the people in the gowns, and yeah, all the students are like, oh, these guys over here. But they're the first ones to come to their aid when they're like, hey, our objectives align with each other. You guys are trying to fuck up the silver industry, and we want that too. So,
which tells you that, like, you may have allies
that you don't know about.
That are in unlikely places, who maybe have very different politics, who might be somewhat bigoted in some circumstances,
or like, maybe just like short-sighted,
or just maybe short-sighted, or just sincerely ignorant. And I think it's so, and I tell this to my students all the time, it's so important to make the distinction between sincerely ignorant, as in they were just never taught, versus willful ignorance. The willful ignorance is the problem. That's the person who's been taught and they double down on their ideology.
Like Letty.
Like Letty, right? So Letty had the opportunity to grow as a person and side and be on the right side of things, and instead she doubled down in her ignorance.
Couldn't let go of wealth and privilege.
Right. She couldn't let go of all of her ideas. And that's, I mean, we make our ideas into our prisons.
Yeah.
Even, you know, it doesn't matter what side, where you're coming from. If your idea is a prison and you're never able to, there's no mutability of your idea, no ability to see what's going on in the situation, you can't play chess.
Yeah.
You get stuck.
Absolutely.
If you say, I will never work with this person because they think XYZ, then you have already given up the game. You throw the chessboard on the ground.
Yeah,
and
they hurt my feelings 3 years ago when they said this thing.
Right.
That I didn't agree with.
This is all like Victoire is like, you're the person who threw the egg at me, and he's like, yeah, sorry about that. We didn't understand that you guys were on the same side of us. We want to do this thing together.
And Victoire's like, cool.
She's like, cool,
yeah.
Because like, what's the point of holding that grudge?
Absolutely.
What use would that make?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there's so many other themes here, like the fact that there's no such thing as good colonialism. There's never been.
No.
There's never been. And the grateful thing comes back to this, right? And you hear this time and again. Why aren't you grateful that the colonial empire has given you X, Y things? Even this in Monty Python. I get so pissed off sometimes when I watch. I grew up with Monty Python, love British humor, all this stuff. But when you see like Life of Brian, and they're talking about, oh, the British never did anything for the Middle East except it built all the roads, except it gave you education, and you're just thinking I'm just thinking to myself, like, knowing the history.
Smug 70s motherfuckers.
I'm just like, you pro-colonialist batshit assholes, like. Yeah. Like, I'm just thinking to myself, like, do you not know the history?
If it weren't for the whole violence inherent in the system thing, I would never forgive them.
I know.
But actually gave me philosopher soccer too.
Yep. So I mean,
good.
they do some good things. They do some good things.
No, that's the thing. It's like, it's the thing about art too, is like, sometimes you don't agree with everything an artist does, you know?
I don't think,
but
it would be insane to agree with everything an artist does.
Yeah, and like, of course I'm not going to sit down with John Cleese and be like, hey man, our politics really align, don't they? Because no, they do not. But he's a funny motherfucker. And I do
does say things like, don't punch down.
Sure.
Like, he absolutely does come to defend the oppressed in some cases.
Sure.
But he's also pro-colonialist in others.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like, and this is the point, is like, and I think the author very successfully captures the complexity of identity of all these individuals. Mm-hmm. Robin is one of the best characters I think I've ever read in literature. Among the best, let's say.
Okay.
Because Robin has this complex identity. It takes him a long time to get to the resistance. Mm-hmm. He does initially resist. But then he backtracks.
Fully, he resists joining it. He betrays it. Like, so he aids the resistance and betrays the resistance in the same night, you know, and that's the sequence he does it in too.
Right. And then he has to ultimately come back and realize and he even says at one point in the book, because he's talking about Letty, like, why did Letty do that? He's like, she doesn't understand it. And then he says, and I didn't understand it either until I went to Canton and saw with my own eyes.
Yes.
Right? And so, which I have another quote somewhere down here about that. Where'd it go? It's hard to accept what you don't want to see.
That's
and it is so
That's
much
a
about
good
our
quote.
world.
That's a good quote.
It's and he says that about Letty.
Yeah.
It's hard to accept what you don't want to see.
Mm-hmm. Not impossible.
And he doesn't really forgive Letty, which like
no, you shouldn't forgive Letty.
But he is like there's a
you can understand.
You can understand without without accepting that someone did something awful.
Mm-hmm.
I have to read these Griffin quotes.
Do it.
I mean, we're getting high up on time here, but I have to.
We sure are.
I have to read these Griffin quotes, if my thing will load. Here he goes. Okay, so this is when Griffin is basically teaching Robin to shoot, and Robin hasn't quite accepted the idea that violence is going to be necessary to change the game.
Yeah.
He hasn't quite accepted it that in this case militancy is going to be the only answer to stop what the British Empire is doing.
Oh yeah. If you've grown up with the understanding that violence is never the answer, that's not true. Violence is often part of
strategic
the answer.
Though. It's gotta be chess.
Not indiscriminate violence, right. Just like sometimes you have to respond with violence.
Well, a lot of
if you want to perform an effective resistance and rebellion to authoritarian structures.
Yeah. See episode 2, V for Vendetta, where we talk about this.
Exactly.
The thing about violence, this is what Griffin says, the thing about violence, C, is that the Empire... let me read this a little better. The thing about violence, C, is that the Empire has a lot more to lose than we do. Violence disrupts the extractive economy. You wreak havoc on one supply line, and there's a dip in prices across the Atlantic. Their entire system of trade is high-strung and vulnerable to shocks because they've made it thus. Because the rapacious greed of capitalism is punishing. It's why slave revolts succeed. They can't fire on their own source of labor. It's like killing their own golden goose. And then it skips ahead a little bit, and he says, violence shows them how much we're willing to give up, said Griffin. Violence is the only language they understand because their system of extraction is inherently violent. Violence shocks the system, and the system cannot survive the shock. You have no idea what you're capable of, truly. You can't imagine how the world might shift unless you pull that trigger. Griffin pointed at the middle of the birch tree. Pull the trigger, kid.
This is why when any black person is killed by police officers, the news media will explain it away, talk about how it was an isolated incident,
or that
there's like some bad apples. They will also always do, they were no angel. Mm-hmm. But if Charlie Kirk is shot by a gun whilst talking about how important it is for average Americans to own firearms, they will lionize him,
Well, and after just finishing talking about hating trans people.
Yeah, absolutely. The powers that be love violence when they are controlling it, mm-hmm. and despise violence when it is directed at them.
And then
they are hypocrites, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. And because violence is everywhere. You just mm-hmm. don't have to see it. Right? There's an Anne Leckie quote from her book Ancillary Justice.
Okay.
And it's like something like forgive me because it's I won't get it verbatim. The beauty of colonialism is that one does not have to see the cost if one does not want to.
Ooh. Yeah, dude. Yeah. It's the thing that it's the thing they never point out in Jane Austen adaptations.
Right. And then one last quote, and this one is actually from Robin when they're talking about the bridge's impending collapse, and they're debating on whether or not they should let it happen or they should call the siege off to protect people and all this stuff. And Robin and someone says we become monsters just like them. And Robin says, but that's precisely the devil's trick, Robin insisted. This is how colonialism works. It convinces us that the fallout from resistance is entirely our fault, that the immoral choice is resistance itself, rather than the circumstances that demanded it.
Oh.
So there's so many brilliant
That's exactly
quotes.
Right. Because the Parliament could have stopped it. The Parliament had a full week of being aware that the bridge was going to collapse. And they would rather sacrifice the bridge and everybody who was using the bridge at that moment than take responsibility for what they had done.
Because the rich don't give a shit.
Mm-hmm.
Why would they give a shit? Their castles don't crumble. They've got everything they need. They probably have their own personal silver worker to maintain it, to make sure that they don't have to do anything. Rather, they just build bunkers and they build fortresses and they sit in their high towers and they drink their tea and they just let everything go to shit.
Absolutely. No, they make a very good point in that moment. Robin's making a very good point, I should say, that the Parliament prefers power to people's safety.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's what it is. That's what it comes down to.
And that's true of anyone who has significant power.
Mm-hmm.
Look at our politicians. Rather than actually addressing stuff in Congress, they just want their power.
They just want their power. They'd rather smear trans people and divide and conquer, you know?
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's what they would absolutely prefer.
Yeah. Final thoughts? Besides, like, you should definitely read this book.
Definitely read this book.
This
it's
is like
super
a book that's
entertaining, by the way.
Yeah.
I feel like we've been talking
It's a page turner.
It's a page turner.
It's a page turner.
I really feel like we've been talking academically about it, and I hope it hasn't come off as too dry, because it is so good. It, like, you're right, Robin's a really great protagonist, because you might be frustrated with him at times. So you're like, Robin, just kind of fucking open your eyes, man.
But it's
or
true.
you might be sympathizing with him, and then something will happen, and you're like, oh shit, wait, no, Griffin or Victoire was right about that, you know? And then there's a moment when it switches, and Robin's kind of like more correct about his resistance than Victoire is, and then she learns from his, you know, and goes, oh, I'm sorry, I've become nonverbal.
It's so good.
Like, talking about this book. It's so good.
Yeah, and it really is. Robin is the story of how do you get radicalized?
I mean,
that's really what it is.
It's like Grapes of Wrath all over again.
Right. It's like the Grapes of Wrath all over again, right? A man gots to eat.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's how do you get radicalized? Like, these people who are radicalized and become revolutionaries, they're human and they've had things happen to them.
Yeah.
And, like, you don't hear the story of Griffin, but you get it through Robin.
Yeah. You get the little bits and pieces. And it's such a... There's... One of the things I love about a really, really good book is you'll be reading about someone's perspective and then getting little hints of other people's stories along the way that aren't extrapolated upon, you know, that aren't explicated for you. And you can imagine them yourself. You can tell yourself that story and you're not wrong, you know? It's like you're getting a little peek into a rich world that exists in your head and in the author's head. And this is an excellent example of that kind of story.
Yeah.
That's my final thought.
That's a good final thought.
Thank you.
Go read the book for sure.
Absolutely.
We have one more, I think probably only one more episode for this year, right? Probably.
Yeah, probably. Because it'll be like mid-December when we do the next one. Yeah.
We're going to be covering
Heavenly
Tyrant, the sequel to Iron Widow, because like we started reading it. We both started reading it after Iron Widow. And we're like,
because Iron Widow's great, right? But then we're just like, oh shit, this is actually
the meat. The meat is in Heavenly Tyrant of the things we like to talk about.
Absolutely.
But also, we're going to launch a Patreon after the new year, and I wanna read something, and I know some of you out there listening will recognize this speech, and then we'll talk about what our next kind of season is going to look like.
Yeah.
Which season 2 of Resistance Reads.
Oh yeah, we're doing seasons now.
Seasons now. Wow. There will be times when the struggle seems impossible. I know this already. Alone, unsure, dwarfed by the scale of the enemy. Remember this. Freedom is a pure idea. It occurs spontaneously and without instruction. Random acts of insurrection are occurring constantly throughout the galaxy. There are whole armies, battalions that have no idea that they're already enlisted in the cause. Remember that the frontier of the rebellion is everywhere, and that even the smallest act of insurrection pushes our lines forward. And remember this, the imperial need for control is so desperate because it is so unnatural. Tyranny requires constant effort, it breaks, it leaks. Authority is brittle. Oppression is the mask of fear. Remember that, and know this. The day will come when all these skirmishes and battles, these moments of defiance will have flooded the banks of the Empire's authority, and then there will be one too many. One single thing that will break the siege. Remember this. Try. So if you don't know,
Chills. I got chills.
if you
It's
don't
good. It's a
know,
good one.
that is from season 1 of
Uh-huh.
Andor. And so Matt and
The
I
very end? The very end?
No, it's the middle of season 1.
Oh shit,
the
okay. I
middle
gotta
of season
rewatch
one.
it.
But
I gotta rewatch
it
it.
replays at the end of season 2,
Okay.
in the conclusion of the series.
Shit.
So we have decided that for Patreon,
Mm-hmm.
our bonus offering will be that we're going to do shows and films. We're going to stay doing the books for the general public, but subscribers will get access to our discussions.
We like shows and movies too.
We like shows and movies too.
Yeah.
And our first up is we're going to cover Andor. We're going to have to do a couple of episodes of Andor because it's so massive
absolutely.
and so much to talk about. But we're going to do Andor and discuss that. And we'll still continue doing literature because, like, books are like my heart.
Oh, same. Absolutely.
So look out for that. We'll be launching that soon. We're also going to start offering some merch. I've got some t-shirt designs.
Mm-hmm.
I have a friend of mine owns a screen printing business, and so we wanted to support local, so we're going to go with that.
Absolutely.
So we're look out for that information soon, and we'll see you in a few weeks with Heavenly Tyrant.
Yeah. Heavenly Tyrant. Oh, good.
So good. Have a good one.
Bye, guys.
Oof, that got long.
That got long. We went off a little bit on that. Man.